I'll be presenting on the prison farms in Canada specifically. And prison farms are an opportunity for rehabilitation, life skills, and building connections within the community. So to give some background on these prison farms, they actually began 150 plus years ago. And during that time, there was actually a waiting list because it was such a good program that inmates wanted to participate. So within Kingston, there were two prison farms, and I guess there now are, which I'll describe a little bit later on. But there's 1,500 acres of farmland that are from these institutions that are dedicated to farming. There's other farms that existed in Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, and New Brunswick. Within the Frontenac institution, there were milking cows, over 130 milking cows, which were really strong in terms of the dairy industry. And so that was a big portion of what I realized that I shouldn't be winging a presentation, but that's okay. So yeah, what I'm trying to say is that the milk was something that actually helped the inmates in terms of what they consumed, but also helped everything from Kingston food banks as well. Within the skills that farms produce, it not only helps with rehabilitation, which is lowering the rates of reoffending, but also building life skills such as empathy, trust, teamwork, and respect. And as I mentioned, the connections that were created between the community and the people in the prison were really strong. And in fact, actually this morning I had a conversation with a local farmer who owns an urban farm around the Kingston area, and in 2018 and 2019 he was able to get some people from the prison to work on his farm, and so it was a great way to be able to sort of get out of that institution and be able to work on the land. So if you want, I'm going to be posting this, but there's an interview from one of the inmates that you can click on. So in 2009 to 2011, the government had the idea that they should close all the prison farms, even though it was such a successful program, which really angered a lot of people from Kingston because of not only were these prison farms seen as a good way to connect the community with the people in prison, but also the way that they framed the reason for the closure wasn't great. So for example, they saw it as not punitive enough, not relevant enough, and also the fact that they were saying that there was a loss of money from the program and that cost a lot, but it actually saved them money too, because they were able to use the stuff that was produced and eat it in the farm and the farms in Ontario as well, or the prisons in Ontario and the prisons in Quebec as well. So because of this, there was a huge uproar within Kingston where people started to protest and write letters and have town halls, and it united people who were prisoner rights activists, local farm enthusiasts, and more. And in fact, it actually led to some arrests as well. But because of these cattle that I was mentioning earlier, they were so important and so award-winning that there was a pen farm herd co-op that was developed to try and save some of the cattle before they were all sent to different areas. So from my personal connection, why I'm so passionate about this is that this kind of began when I moved to Kingston. It was something that I saw a lot of because one of the farms was literally just down the road from me. And so I saw and heard a lot about these protests and about the issues that were associated with them. So seeing signs like this, in fact, from 2009 to 2011, before the farms completely closed, there were a lot of protests that took place. But even beyond that, every Monday there would be a vigil that would take place out front of one of the farms, and people would say, bring back the farms, bring back the farms. And in fact, 2016, there was a town hall where the entire room that was focused on it was so packed that people couldn't fit in. And that's how much interest and drive exists still in Kingston. So I really recommend this documentary to you. It's called Till the Cows Come Home. I'm not going to play it right now, but it really helps put it in perspective. I just attached the trailer so that it's nice and short. So that if you do want to see the documentary, you can. There we go. And because the activism still continued all during that time, in August 2019, there was an announcement to reopen the farms. However, oh, so my 5-minute mark has finished, so I'll go quick. Yeah, so what they've done is, because during that time, that gap between 2011 to now, because they needed to still find ways to eat, they ended up using all their food that they were consuming not out of what they made on the farm, but from a third-party source and bringing it in. And so because that has been established since then, they have moved to reopen it with a private sector mindset. So the farms that are there now have a strong focus on for profit rather than trying to have it as a rehabilitative program, which can make it a little bit more tricky in terms of how it's done. So for example, there is some controversy around formula made out of the milk that has now been starting to be produced there. And they are using this milk to make a formula to send it to China. And so that's the purpose of Margaret Atwood's comment, which is, what's wrong with this proposed prison farm return? Feed prisoners in local communities, not international markets. However, the cattle, there were 9 cattle that did go back to the farm, which is a positive thing. And there's cows, soon to be goats, as well as bees, there are 2. And they're actually expanding it to soy, barley, and community garden. I should not go too much in detail. So moving on, there's this new organization that began as well called Evolve Our Prison Farms. And what they're trying to do is to move away from the for-profit model and to move towards more social justice-based model. And what they're trying right now during COVID is that they're trying to use the materials that are in the food that's being produced on the farms to be provided to sort of a federal food bank project to help with food insecurities, which would help address food shortages, provide food to Northern Indigenous communities, and help with a variety of other things as well.